Hello guys, in today's video we're going to start the chapter 1 of Bleach light novel Can't Fear Your Own World. In this video we're going to say a flashback of Tosen anime 100 years ago in Seireitei. So without further ado, let's start the video. Hundreds of years ago in Seireitei at governmental district. Why wasn't that man sentenced to death? It was an outcry that risked his life. I'd like an audience with the Central 46. Please. A young man continues to raise his voice whilst being blocked by the steel staff weapons being held up by the brawny guards. There were no pupils in the eyes of the young man, and it could be surmised from his meticulous movements that he was blind. This blind young man seems able to perceive the state of affairs around him through sound alone, and it appears that he can also sense the ferocious aura of the guards that were standing in front of him. Perhaps these gatekeepers were related to nobility, after all. The way in which they eyed the young man who appears to have come from Rukongai revealed a look of clear disdain. Nevertheless, the young man extends his hand beyond the gates without hesitation. What came spilling out from the young man's mouth is an outcry that demands condemnation of the crime. A genuine plea seeking enforcement of justice. But never lending an ear to it, the guards raised their staves over the blind man. The sound of chafed fabric. A rustling in the air, a stream of footwork. The blind youth, perceiving all of it, understood that a guard was about to deal a merciless blow against him. However, he does not try to avoid it. Is it despair, or perhaps sorrow which hangs in that facial expression of his? Either way, not even the slightest sign indicating that he may have shrunk back in fear could be found on that face. That young man had already resolved to stake his own life the instant he arrived in this place. Unaware of this fact, the guards thought nothing of it, having assumed that he probably isn't attempting to dodge due to his blindness. Without wavering on their non-resistant opponent, they swing down their weapons. But then, the sound of a violent collision reverberated as the guard's strike repelled back. What met the guards' eyes was his Zanpakuto still sheathed in its scabbard. And the moment they saw the person who was holding it, the looks on the guards' faces stiffened. Please don't do anything that may cause a commotion. We are still in mourning for Kakyo-san. Leave it to me, I'll reason with him. You guys can return to your guard duties. The blind young man was unable to comprehend what had happened at first. His consciousness was captured by the name that was disclosed by the man who appears to have just rescued him. Kakyo. The very reason he had come to this place at the risk of his own life. It is the name of an irreplaceable friend with whom he had spent his days in the Rukongai since childhood. The man who had uttered that name then addressed a blind youth with a gentle voice. I recognize you. If I'm not mistaken, I believe you came to Kakyo-san's funeral. You know her? She was a comrade. I'm also a Shinigami. Although, perhaps I am incapable as a Shinigami when I couldn't protect her back then. The man who spoke with a grief-stricken expression held out a hand to the blind youth. Let's move to some other place. You have nothing more to discuss with those stubborn guards, don't you think? That's right, you're Tosen Kaname-kun, aren't you? Even at the squad barracks, she would mention your name from time to time. So I guess you were invited specially for the funeral service, huh? The blind young man, Tosen Kaname, is a resident of Rukongai. Under normal circumstances he would be unable to freely travel in and out of Seireitei unless he was a Shinigami. It was a special exception that one such as himself was admitted entry within Seireitei. When she enlisted as a Shinigami, Kakyo-san left behind a will ahead of time. We can't predict when we'll die in the battle against Hollows after all. If anything, it's recommended by the Shino Academy. According to the Shinigami, who was an acquaintance of Kakyo, she had indicated within her will that if I should die, I wish for my remains to be buried in Rukongai. It seems she wished to be buried at the foot of a hill where the stars could be seen. That place is known by her close friend, Tosen Kaname. Yes, I happen to know that hill. What is revived in Tosen's mind is memories of a time when he would look up at the night sky together with his dear friend at the site of a village located on top of a hill. I love the night sky. Kaname. Because the night sky is like this world. Everything is wrapped in darkness and there are many little lights. But there are clouds that try to conceal them from sight. As for me, Kaname, I want to become the person who will sweep away those clouds. So that not even a single light will be allowed to go out. I will sweep away those clouds, Kaname. Saying so as she raised her eyes to the stars, she eventually made her dream come true. She gained the power and position in order to protect the light of the world. Constituting the foundation of the entirety of Soul Society, they are charged with the responsibility of world circulation, guiding those who have made a life in the human world to this one. Driving out hollows who were evil spirits and becoming the hope of the people. Indeed, she was given the right to protect the stars. However, having realized her dream, she was unable to take the next step forward. I heard that her husband was the one that killed her. Yes, that's right. Her husband slayed a comrade of the same division over a trivial dispute, and then when she tried to admonish him for it, he even killed his own wife. That's the truth. Why did she have to die? At a Tosen who had clenched his fist tightly in frustration, the man who was a Shinigami then replies. This is just my guess, but I think it's because she was a more honest person than any other, someone who continued to foster justice and peace. That was something Tosen could also understand. His good friend Kakyo loved peace more than anyone. Valued justice more than anyone. It is for this reason that she was prepared to stain her own hands with the blood of a hollow. I also wondered if something like this would happen one day, and I was always worried for her. She loved peace too much to persevere with justice. If she had negated both love and peace, if she had only lived by nothing but a strict sense of justice, then quite conversely, she may have been the one to kill her husband. But she was not able to do so. Do you mean to say that her hopes were wrong then? I heard that the man who killed her won't even be charged with this great crime. That's why you sought an audience with the Central 46, huh? The Shinigami released a small sigh and continued to speak, as if he was hesitant to do so. Do you know about the 5 great noble clans? I do not know the specific house names, but surely, they are the most prominent families among the nobles of the Seireitei. The man who killed Kakyo-san is from the bloodline of one of those 5 great houses. He knew that she was married to a Shinigami, but he's never heard that it was into a family so distinguished that they were one of the 5 great houses. At the bewilderment of Tosen, the Shinigami continued further. He does not belong to the lineage of the main house, rather, he is the descendant of a branch family. Although that man has no significant political power, a noble is able to have the crime of murder abated, even when it's a man in that sort of position. If he was a member of the head house, it would have been treated as if the murder itself was non-existent, then I suppose things would be settled under the guise that Kakyo-san was accused of treason and thus executed. How can that be? Such a thing is absurd. Tosen reflexively raises his voice. From the moment he heard that the man who had murdered his good friend would not be condemned for his heinous crime, in his heart, he had even considered that such a possibility existed. However, he did not want to believe that such things would happen within an organization that she herself had positively described as a force for the sake of justice. For this reason, and particularly because he wanted to disprove it, he had come as far as this place to appeal directly to the Central 46 at the risk of his own life. The Shinigami, the Gate 13, are they not a group that defends the peace and harmony of the soul society and the human world? Were Central 46 not the people who personify the principles of the world? The peace was defended. After all, nobility are also part of this world. Their peace was defended. And thus, surely the current Central 46 are a symbol of such an irrational world. Tosen stood dumbfounded at the Shinigami's assertion. In response to this, the Shinigami grimaced in vexation as he opened his mouth to speak. I'm painfully aware of your feelings. I also think it's peculiar, no matter how one looks at it, that the likes of the man who killed her had his crimes overlooked. But that's the Soul Society for you. The Central 46 are under the thumb of the 5 great noble clans, particularly the Tsunayashiro clan who possess power. Speaking with a sorrowful expression, the man balled up his fist tightly similar to Tosen. After confirming that no one was in the vicinity, he began to ask a question in a quiet voice. Still, based entirely on that, I daringly want to ask you, her close friend. Although Tosen's heart was being eroded by a resentment that knows no bounds, as if losing his mental battle at the man's serious tone of voice, he closed his mouth which was almost agape and listened attentively to the words of his companion. If, say, you or I had enough power to take revenge, do you suppose we should take it? This is also a question of how we confront her wishes and dignity. Could it be that she actually wants you, Tosen-kun, to avenge her? Tosen couldn't see his companion's face nor the expression on it, but he could sense something akin to a slight bloodlust in every word the Shinigami uttered. In contrast to that, and as a result of regaining his composure, Tosen manages to suppress his anger with some effort, at the same time he recalls the words of his dear friend as he began to craft his sentences. For her comrade to be pushed to exude such a thirst for blood, that is far removed from the world she wanted. As he frantically tried to reach an understanding within himself, Tosen made an attempt to answer the Shinigami's query. I think she would not wish for us to avenge her. If that is her wish, then I also, however, his words stopped there. I also have no desire for vengeance. He found it impossible to disgorge that statement from his mouth. He knew that she would likely never want another person to take up revenge on her account. However, the emotions that were incessantly pulsing in the pit of his gut did not deem it acceptable to acknowledge that. Her wishes have nothing to do with it. Take revenge for yourself. A mass of dark sentiment welling up from within makes an appeal to him, but Tosen could not obey this voice. Because he understands. If he allowed himself or some other person to yield to that hatred, in that very moment, it would be as if she had greeted death a second time. All proof that she was alive would become trampled underfoot, her hopes butchered by his own hands. Thinking that this was the last thing he would do, Tosen formed his next words to replace his suppressed sentiments. I also think I want to honor her wishes as well as the justice and peace she hoped for. I see. You're right. She certainly loved peace. That's why she lost her life, although I do not think it was her weakness. The Shinigami allowed his bloodlust to fade and continued to address Tosen matter-of-factly. If it can be demonstrated that what she had prayed for was not a weakness but a strength, then that is how people like yourself will live from now on, don't you agree? Please, live by inheriting her wishes. So that pointless bloodshed will not sweep through this world anymore. It's not like he was able to accept the situation from the bottom of his heart at the Shinigami's say-so. However, Tosen realized that the man standing before him is someone who understood his good friend in the same way he did. He decided to thank the man for containing his hate-ridden heart. Thank you very much. No, it is I who must thank you. In this way, a person like you will carry on her dying wish. Well, I don't really have that kind of right to. Even now he was so desperately restraining the indignation and loathing that was coming to the boil, and he felt quite unqualified to protect her will. In response to Tosen, who was thinking as such, the Shinigami begins to address him with a gentle smile. You don't need rights and whatnot to inherit a person's wishes, don't you think? She once said it herself. My own wishes are nothing extraordinary, like the stars in the sky, I simply want to protect something that just keeps on shining up there, it's that kind of modest hope. The fact that she had spoken those words was perhaps proof that she truly had hope for her Shinigami comrades, including the man before his eyes. Guessing as much, Tosen was relieved that there was also a person among the Shinigami who respects her worth. Say, if you don't mind, could you tell me your name? For this reason, he asked the man his name. Because there is indeed another beside himself who had seen her inner self, because he would etch into his heart that the world is cruel, but not without mercy. And so, in a calm demeanor, the man spoke his name without hesitation. Certainly, my name is Tokinada Tsunayashiro Tokinada. I'm sorry, did you say, Tsunayashiro-sama? At that point, Tosen's thought process came to an instant halt. A potent feeling of discomfort. After all, a familiar name had just been uttered from the mouth of the man that stood before him. And this is where we stop the video. What will Tosen Kaname do now that he knows that the Shinigami that he thought has a respect to her friend is the same person who killed her? Will he avenge her death or not? Find out in the part 2 of this video. I hope you enjoy this video and have a great day. See ya.